As you said, Lisa, oftentimes what happens is that people get wind of Cone, primarily because he is considered the godfather of Black liberation theology. He's prolific. He's written monograph after monograph, like hitting you every year, especially in the beginnings of the movement. And then also, most recently, he came out with I think is his most beautiful monograph, which is The Cross and the Lynching Tree. If you have not gotten that, you need to read that. It'll challenge you. It'll stretch you. You may agree with more or less of what he says, but either way, you'll be blessed by that.
The lynching tree interprets the cross. It keeps the cross out of the hands of those who are dominant. I think racism has to do with power. And you switch the power and you'll get black racism. Yeah, you would. It has to do with power. It has nothing to do with biology. And that's why the redistribution of power is so essential. If you're not talking about redistributing power, you're just joking around. You just want to feel good. It's not about feeling good. It's about distributing power. And people don't want to do that. That's why the Senate in the city, that's white power right there. That's what it is. White power. And people can have it and smile at you at the same time. That's what I tell the people at Union. That's white power. Because whites have all the power. All they have to do is vote. That's why they love democracy, at least for a moment. But soon they're going to figure out a way so democracy won't count.
You'll be blessed by that. And so people have sort of latched onto Cone because he's more of a lightning rod. He is intentionally trying to wed the Christian faith of Martin Luther King with the black power of Malcolm X, hence his book, Martin and Malcolm in America, A Dream or a Nightmare. And so because of that, he's this sort of seminal, powerful figure, almost like a wrecking ball, right? He is sort of trying to deconstruct and blow up this sort of stranglehold that white men have had on academic theology in America.
A lynching is trying to control the population. It is striking terror in the population so as to control it. That's what the ghetto does. It crams people into living spaces where they will self-destruct, kill each other, fight each other, shoot each other, because they have no place to breathe, no place for recreation, no place for an articulation and expression of their humanity. So it becomes a way, a metaphor for lynching. If lynching is understood as one group forcing a kind of inhumanity upon another group. If you are going to worship somebody that was nailed to a tree, you must know that the life of a disciple of that person is not going to be easy. You may end up on a tree too. Just like Jesus, blacks and gays that whites and straight people despise.
I think is his most beautiful monograph, which is The Cross and the Lynching Tree. If you have not gotten that, you need to read that. It'll challenge you. It'll stretch you. You may agree with more or less of what he says, but either way, you'll be blessed by that.
See, our resistance is a resistance against the odds. That's why we can understand the cross.
J.D. Otis Roberts comes along in 1971 and publishes Liberation and Reconciliation.
Which I love that book.
Yeah, which is my favorite theological book of all time. You need to pick up Liberation and Reconciliation. It's just as applicable as it was then, for it is now, because it's the same but different, as they say out in the Far East. So I really do like his second book. I think it was written in '73, A Black Political Theology. The Prophethood of Black Believers, which is people don't really know this book as much, but I love it because he's really marching out what it means to have a practical black theology. And so for him to talk about Christology and the blackness of Christ, he says, you know what, Jesus is not ontologically black. He is whoever you are, wherever you are. So God, to him, looks black, but for the person who's Asian, he looks Asian, or Japanese specifically, or Taiwanese, or Chinese, or the person who's African, God looks African because he meets you exactly where you are. And he's restoring all of that brokenness where you are to be more like the kingdom that's to come. Granted, that because we can't do it perfectly ourselves, he will bring it about himself, but he will meet each and every individual in that particular where they are. But there is still these universal ideas of restoration. There's these universal ideas that God is bringing about in every context, but it looks a specific way in a specific context. And so he does well to not get caught up in their own context and to make God or Christ ontologically black, right? In his essence, making him black, so that he's therefore non-applicable to other Christians who are not black. But he then escapes the other extreme of making Christ and his work in salvation so ethereal and so theory-driven that it's no good to anybody in any context because you haven't done the work to apply it anywhere. So if there's anybody who has done the work of being a theologian, of understanding the universal imperatives of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but also articulating it so clearly and so profoundly in any other context, I think J.D. Otis Roberts is it.